This is what you get when I haven't been fishing in 3 weeks. Hey, I'm Ben. I'm a huge fly fisherman. Welcome back to another episode of Huge Fly Fisherman. So yeah, today's gonna be a Q&A video. I hit you guys up on Instagram last week and asked for some questions. I went through them and picked the ones that I like, and I'm going to answer them for you. Some of my answers aren't gonna be appropriate for YouTube, so the full version of this video is on my other channel at special.tv. If you wanna hear more, you can go over there and check it out. Also, if you wanna go to hugeflyfisherman.com and scoop some huge stuff, it helps support the channel directly. So I got a lot of great questions from you, thank you. I'm gonna answer a whole bunch of them. Some of them are quick and simple, others are a little more in depth. Some are more serious questions and some are just kind of for fun. Let's start with one of the bigger picture questions. How do you figure out a fishery? Yeah, that's a doozy of a question that could be its own video or even a book, but I'll try to point out a few simple things to maybe explain it for you. Number one is time. You're gonna have to spend a lot of time in that fishery, whether it's a river or a marsh or whatever. You're gonna have to see it under a lot of different conditions. You need to be out there experiencing it as much as you can. After you spend a lot of time out there, you're gonna start to learn things. Maybe you see this one fish behind this rock every day. Well, that's his house, he lives there. Maybe you'll learn that the hatch comes off at 1:33 in the afternoon. You know, if you're always out of there by noon, you're not gonna know that. You just need to try to gather as much information about that fishery as you can. And a lot of that is done while you're not actually fishing. I do a lot of sitting on the bank, drinking a beer, eating some chicken, whatever. You can learn a lot just by sitting down and observing. And you should really be doing that before you jump into the water anyway. If you come up to a pool and you want to fish it, just sit there for a minute and look. You might see a fish rise over there. You might see a fish flash down in the deep. You know, it's like my buddy Colin told me one time, if there are tarpon around, they'll generally make themselves known. All you gotta do is hang out and watch for a minute. So to figure out your fishery, spend as much time as you can there and observe as many things as you can. Techniques and methods and fly selection and stuff like that isn't nearly as important as just knowing what's going on around you. All right, next question. Do I prefer a blood knot or a triple surgeon's knot for setting up a dropper rig, and why? Well, first I'm gonna assume that you're talking about tying a dropper to the tag end of the knot. I don't really set up my rigs that way. I'm not a Euro dork and I've just never done it that way. I do my dropper rigs in line. Tip it to the eye of the hook and then another piece of tippet from the bend of that hook to the eye of the next hook. But anyway, I can still answer your question, but I'll do it from the standpoint of just adding a piece of tippet. Number one, I don't ever use a triple surgeon's knot. I know Tom Rosenbauer does it, but the double surgeon's knot has been fine for me. I use a double surgeon's knot for anything 4X and smaller. So if I'm fishing line that light, I'm generally not going for anything big, and having like maximum knot strength isn't super important. Now, if I'm using tippet bigger than 4X, I am gonna use a blood knot. I think the blood knot works better with bigger lines. If you try to do a double surgeons with pretty thick tippet, it just looks terrible and it doesn't seat very well. A blood knot, when done properly, seats really nice. It's a clean, pretty knot, and it's strong. So 4X and below, double surgeons, 3X and up, blood knot. That's the way I do it. And that's just kind of for general fishing. If you're getting serious and going for really big stuff, you might need an improved blood knot or like bimini twists, all that kind of stuff. All right, next we got a few questions about rods. First, why do people hate on echo rods as if they were moonshine rods? You know, I've been wondering the same thing. I have next to no experience with echo rods. I think I fished one time and it was a Euro nymphing rod, so it barely counts as a fly rod anyway. I don't think I ever got the fly line out of the guides. It was fine, I caught fish on it. Mostly I don't get the hate for echo rods because I have some friends whose opinions I trust a lot, and they like echo rods. Now, these guys aren't using the low-end echo rods, so maybe that has something to do with it. All right, the next rod question is, do I have a preference for graphite or fiberglass rods? Yes, I do. I'm almost always using a graphite rod. I think they're better suited to a wider range of applications. Now, I do like fiberglass rods for some things. They do have their place, mostly dry fly fishing. It's really nice to just cast a single dry on a fiberglass rod. That could be trout fishing for some pretty good sized trout, but mostly it's small stuff like little brook trout streams or like bluegill fishing, stuff like that. I've seen people try to nymph with a fiberglass rod, doesn't work real well. And if you're trying to fish a streamer with a sink tip or something, using a fiberglass rod, you're just making things harder on yourself. All right, next rod question. What is my favorite rod that I have used? I'm gonna throw two of them at you here. Currently, it is my Orvis H3 8-weight. I think that is the fly rod that I use more than any other. It's my streamer rod, it's my carp rod, it's a great saltwater rod. Sometimes I could be a little undergunned because it's an 8-weight, but it's a great redfish rod. It's a fast action rod, which is not normally what I like, but I just love my H3 8-weight. Now, I do have to give an honorable mention to a 4-weight that I've had for like 25 years. It's a St. Croix Legend Ultra 9-foot 4-weight. I have caught so many fish on that rod, and I can cast that rod better than any rod that I own. I think that might be because I fished nothing but St. Croix rods for at least 15 years, so I think maybe my casting style adjusted to those rods. I'm not a power caster. I prefer a medium or medium fast rod, and that Legend Ultra 4-weight, it just fits me. I can throw it really well. It's kind of fallen by the wayside in the last few years though. I need to break it out. And I'm also pretty soured on anything St. Croix since they quit making the Legend series. Bad move, St. Croix. All right, let's get away from rods. The next question is, what's the most special fishery you remember that no longer exists? And are there a lot of those? There is one place that comes to mind for sure. There is a place in northern Colorado where a tributary of the main stem comes out of a dam, and you have like a half a mile of river before it dumps into the main stem. If you know where this is, don't mention it. Let's just keep it between us. But I used to fish there a long time ago for like probably 4 or 5 years. It was great because access was difficult. It was legal, but it was a little bit tricky to figure out. Once we figured out the right way to get in there, we beat the hell out of it, and we caught a ton of big fish. It had the most insane trico hatches I have ever seen in my life. That's where I learned how to fish a trico hatch and figure out which flies work best. I caught my first 20-inch brown trout there. It was amazing. It was our own little paradise for several years. I moved away and didn't fish there anymore, and then later on they turned it into this big like public park thing and just promoted the hell out of it. And I'm sure it's still a fine place to fish, but I know it's not like how it used to be. So that's the one that sticks out most for me. And then the follow-up is, are there a lot of places like that? And you know what I think of is those places are still there, but now we just don't have access to them. Maybe they were private all along, the landowner just didn't care, and now they're posted. But I can think of a lot of places where I used to fish where we just can't go there anymore. Access is getting tougher all the time. All right, the next question is, what is my favorite thing about fly fishing and my least favorite thing about fly fishing? Well, I had the same answer for both of those questions: the people. Fly fishing has introduced me to some really incredible people. People that are generous, they're great storytellers, they're just fun to hang around, they're super talented anglers. There really are some amazing people in fly fishing, but there are also some pretty awful ones. You've got the disingenuous people that are just using fly fishing as a platform to boost themselves. Just take a quick scroll through Instagram, you can see plenty of that. You've got spot burners blowing up your fishing spot. You've got people that don't advocate for conservation or being a steward of your resource. They're just out there exploiting it and getting nothing back. I do not like those people. So yeah, best and worst thing about fly fishing, the people. Next question is a quick one. Why do I not have any musky content? Well, I've never fished for them and never caught one, that's one reason. But that is going to change. I have a musky trip on the books. Don't hold your breath, it's gonna be a little while, but we have something planned with some people that you might have heard of. Next question's another quick one. What is my favorite mixed drink? I think that is definitely gonna be a Bloody Mary. I don't do a lot of cocktail type drinks. I'm more of a beer guy in case you didn't notice, but I can do some Bloody Marys. Time for another beer. Why don't you get one for yourself too? Okay, next question's kind of a fun one. Is it selfish to ask my fiance if I can go fishing on our honeymoon? Great question. My first thought is yes, absolutely fine. She loves you, ask if you can go fishing. But you better be careful. I think before you even ask that question, you should already know what she's gonna say. Hopefully it's yes. I went fishing on my honeymoon. We went to the Bahamas. So yeah, of course Ben's gonna go bone fishing, but I also took my wife with me. We fished 2 days together in Andros, and she actually caught a bigger bonefish than I did. But we were also there for 5 other days where Ben did not go fishing. That's important. So yeah, ask her if you can go fishing on your honeymoon. Go for it. But don't blame me if things go bad. Next question is, what is my favorite streamer line? Lately, it's been the Orvis Bank Shot. It's a 10-foot sink tip, I think. It's a good line, the performance is there, and I'm happy with the longevity. I was coming off of using the Rio Streamer Tip, I think it was called, and it was a good line for a week. You know, Rio lines just do not last long, period. So I've been on the Orvis line for like 3 years now. I've gone through 2 of them, I think, and that's with a lot of use. So it's a quality line. Regardless of brand, I think the most important thing about the streamer lines that I like is a short sink tip. 10-foot sink tip is like perfect. There's lines out there that have like 25-foot sinking sections on the tip, and I think that's just silly. Just use a full sinking line if you're gonna do that. 10-foot sink tip is easy to pick up and it's easy to cast, and we're not bombing 80-foot casts, you know, I'm just throwing it over the bank like 30, 40 feet away, tops, sometimes less than that. So try out the Orvis Bank Shot, see if you like it. I also do have an intermediate bank shot that I have not tried out yet, but I'm sure it's fine. All right, next question's a little off topic, but that's all right. Someone is asking, what life advice has resonated with me the most? I think that's an easy one for me to answer. Trust your gut. That can mean a lot of things. What fly should I use? Who should I marry? Should I have another beer? Should I be a Tenkara fisherman? Well, that's a hard no, but trust your gut. I think that's an important one, and I generally live by that. The first thing that pops into your head is usually the right thing. All right, next question is food related. In winter, is it acceptable to heat up fried chicken? Well, yeah, of course. I mean, who would say no to that? Hot fried chicken's better than cold fried chicken, and cold fried chicken's pretty good. But I think a better option when it's cold out is to use your jet boil and heat up some soup or ramen or something like that. It really warms you up inside on a cold day. But I will offer you some general fried chicken advice. If you're pulling cold fried chicken out of the fridge for your day of fishing, throw it in the oven for a little while before you leave the house. Just put it in the oven at like 350 for a little while and the skin will get crispy again. It is a really nice touch. But after you get it crispy, when you're letting it cool down, you can't close it up. Don't put it in a Ziploc bag or something like that. It has to breathe and be open to the air, or else it's just gonna get soggy again as it's cooling down. So try that and your chicken will be crispier, I promise. Okay, last question and then we're gonna wrap it up. Somebody asked, what is one species of fish you haven't caught yet that you would really like to catch? I think I'm gonna have to split this one into 2 categories. The sort of more attainable fish and then the more exotic fish. On the attainable side, I think it's gonna be a steelhead. I haven't done a lot of steelhead fishing, but I have done some, and I have hooked 2. They were both nice big ones. I saw them jump, like it was awesome, but I have yet to land one. So I'd like to check that one off the list and grab a steelhead by the tail. And when that does happen, it's gonna be on the West Coast, not in the Great Lakes, ideally. And I'm gonna throw an honorable mention in the attainable category. I still have not caught my grass carp. I used to spend a lot of time trying to catch one, and I never did. And I know it's not that big of a deal. I mean, you can catch them and they don't fight hard, but I just want to get my grass carp. Now on the other side of the coin, let's talk about the exotic fish. I mean, obviously a GT would be awesome, right? They're big bruisers, they pull hard. But I think even more than catching a GT, I want to catch a milkfish. They're just strange fish, and whenever I see a fish with that sickle tail, I know it's gonna be a good fight, man. Those things are gonna run far and pull hard. And milkfish are supposed to be pretty challenging to catch. So GT would be cool, but I think a milkfish would just be more interesting. Or what the hell, why not both, right? Well, I think that's gonna wrap it up. I've got more questions that I didn't answer, and maybe I'll save that for another video. Or if you have some questions that you want me to answer, go ahead and leave a comment, and I might use that for the next video. Or if you don't like this kind of video, go ahead and let me know, and we'll get back to our usual programming. So I hope you enjoyed watching this video. Maybe you learned something about me or about fly fishing that you didn't know already. I'll be back as soon as I can with another huge fly fisherman video for you. Until then, trust your gut, stay huge. Really need some flip-flop time.